What up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos, broadcasting to the world live from Phoenix, Arizona. Want to welcome everybody in. Today, we're diving into the Abby and Libby case, also known as the Delphi murders, or the case against Richard M. Allen. Now, today, we're going to play a little devil's advocate, but these are going to be serious questions, and I want you guys to answer honestly. Why not Richard Allen? Some of the main points of discussion I have here will be he called the tip line. So there's a good example. The crime scene, a lot of folks think that it is pointing to a ritualistic murder. Nothing that we found tells us Richard Allen fits that profile. And no criminal history for Richard Allen. So right now in the chat, if you could, go ahead and continue on with reasons that it might not be Richard Allen. Then we're going to address those individually. I put together some content that will go to those points there, but I want to hear what you guys have to say as well. And we'll get started here in just a few minutes. I'm going to say hello to Cindy, Copper Horse, Zoe Kitty, Beth Gonzalez, Silas Stingy, Steffa, taking care of your mom. She's back from the hospital this morning from surgery. Hope that she has a speedy recovery. Beth, good to see you. Jill Moser, Patricia Warner. What I miss? Sherry Wilson, Christine, Pipers, Zoe, James. What's up, James? Jill, always good to see you. Phil Bond, how are you doing? Ash, MJ, welcome. Night Shadow, good to see you. Oh, we see a new name here. Dave G. Welcome in, Dave. Hopefully they are welcoming you in. What's going on, Zoe? Mustang, what's up? Says justice for Abby and Libby. Thank you for that. Gabe, what's up? Good to see you in the chat instead of the comments. Welcome in. Cindy, because he looked his attorneys in the eyes and told them he was innocent. Well, let's look for legitimate reasons. I think that's pretty common. Like, for instance, no criminal history. That's not something that's too common with violent offenders. You know, we have some serial killers that fit that bill, like the BTK, but the majority of violent offenders have some kind of prior rap sheet. So let's think like a Richard Allen supporter. But that does count. But let's go deeper. Because we know the defense team is going to be, they want that plausible deniability. Help me help you. Hey there's, welcome in. Congrats on winning your Sleuth Crew merch shirt. I hope it came in okay. I hope it looks good. If you have any issues, let me know. I'll send you another one. We're doing another giveaway. I think it will be on the 7th, so Saturday. And we'll do it pretty early, so all of my European and members and mods and subscribers who are on the other side of the pond can finally get a chance to win. And we have sent some merch overseas during these giveaways, so it's no biggie. Melanie, what's up? Good to see you. Hathers with the 9-month flex says justice for Abby and Libby. Thank you for supporting my channel. I appreciate you. Yeah, it's good to have you, Dave. Let us know what you think. Why not Richard Allen? Why not? What kind of guilty person calls the tip line and tells law enforcement, hey, look over here. I was there. And I'll give you my opinion. Oh, Jerry, what is up, man? I haven't seen you in a minute. Longtime supporter there. Thank you for the super sticker or the super chat. Sorry, I appreciate that. Thank you for sponsoring today's live stream. Stingy, there is just too much to suggest he is guilty unless something else comes out that really shown innocent. What about the DNA? We've talked about that, and we don't know for a fact, but what about that? We haven't heard a whole lot about the DNA. And I'm almost certain that it would have been talked about in his interrogation with Jerry Holman, just like the bullet, right? So I think we might be able to put that on the list, but not quite sure if that's factual yet. But I definitely want to play the devil's advocate today on this.
I rest my case.
Yeah, there's a whole lot against him. In my opinion, the unspent bullet is very powerful evidence against him. Even more powerful when the defense team's own experts agree. Dave G says, I think he is 100% guilty. 100%? It's a strong position. 1111, welcome in. Support with Steph says, I don't know the discovery, so I'm struggling to give educated answers. Yeah, let's just focus on what we do know. So we know that he did call in the tip line and he met with Dan Doolin. We know that the crime scene was staged, and some of the experts believe that it was a ritual. The killer left signs of a ritualistic murder. And a lot of people agree with that. And there's nothing that we know. And I'm not saying there isn't anything there pointing to Richard Allen and the occult or whatever might connect him to a ritualistic crime scene, because we don't know a whole lot about him. He's had plenty of time to cover that up. But I think we can talk about that. And then also no criminal history. That's pretty rare for violent offenders. I don't know, haters. We know that there's DNA left at every crime scene. There's DNA left everywhere. Anywhere that there's human contact or human presence, we're going to find DNA. And law enforcement, they like to say that to reporters, hey, did you find DNA? Yes, we did. Well, of course they did. Is it Richard Allen's DNA? That I believe that they can't prove. Doesn't mean that the killer didn't take steps to ensure that, right? Hey, Anna, unusual for a guy about 45 years old to suddenly do such a crime. I don't know. We can look at that, though. We'll pull up those statistics. I've looked that up. It's really not that unusual, especially with people suffering from psychopathy, right? Specifically with family annihilators like Watts and a handful of others. They no criminal history, no criminal past. They go to work like everybody else, and then boom, they meet somebody new and they just kill their whole family. Typically, they're middle-aged people. But we'll look into that. That's a good one. Unusual 45-year-old man. We'll dive deeper into that for sure. Did they know they had him on video when he called the tip line? No. Video and those photographs weren't released until the 15th or the 16th. And even then, they didn't say where they came from. I don't think they even admitted that until the 22nd. What's up, Mar R? For those of you just joining in, we're going to play a little bit of the devil's advocate. We'll be playing devil's advocate on this question here. Why not Richard Allen? So far, we have he called in the tip line, letting them know he was there, and even met with Dan Doolin. Crime scene seems, some believe it points to a ritualistic murder. That doesn't fit with Richard Allen, from what we know. No criminal history. Unusual for a man that age to just up and commit a double homicide. Anna says, to me, Richard Allen's body proportions. Well, you have to look at his proportions from 2016 when he was somewhat of a tweaker-ish, it appears. So if he killed the girls to regain power, look at his body type next to the bridge guy there. That's him in 2018. He has some muscle tone, and he's got a little bit of fat on him. But no matter what, you're not going to be able to change the shape of your shoulders. But I mean, you can't argue the fact that he doesn't look like the bridge guy. You just can't. In my opinion. Yeah, let's I guess we'll just focus in on what we do know. But I've never seen a better match to the guy in that Libby's video than Richard Allen. By far. I've even gone as far to say that Brad Holder is very similar. He's just too tall. He seems taller. We're looking at a guy with no neck here. All shoulders. That's how us short people live. No neck in it. Sela says Steve's last show, his proportions are identical. I agree with that. And I missed it. Gabriel says, did his wife ever say anything about recognizing the clothing he wore on the bridge? Well, I think the one reason that he admitted and called in the tip line is because maybe his family members and a handful of people knew that he was at the trail that day. Or simply he knew the girl saw him. It's better that he comes to them than them coming to him, because then they could get the search warrant right away. You know, you ask the judge says, well, did you talk to this man? Yeah, he called in the tip line and said he was there. Well, what did he say? He says he saw, 3 girls walking the trail. Okay. And those 3 girls saw him? Yes. Well, I can't, there's no probable cause there to go search his home. But if he did not come forward, and the witnesses, and then they found out Richard Allen was the guy that the 3 witnesses did see that day, then I think they would be able to go search his home. What's up, Yankee? Good to see you. Said there was DNA, but unsure if it was the killer. Yeah, and we had Toby even admit that to Barbara McDonald. She says, do you have fingerprints? He said, yes. Do they belong to the killer? I don't know. And you have DNA? Yes. Do you have the killer's DNA? That I don't know. Does that point to his innocence? No. We know he was with the victims, Abby and Libby, for personally at least for an hour and a half. Yeah, that's a good word, Anna. Most. Not all, but most. Right? And we don't know about his habits, Anna. And why not? Where's Richard Allen's Facebook? Where's his digital footprint? Why did his wife not post anything about him through the entirety of 2017? Right after 2000, right when it became the year 2017, it's like they weren't even married. And then, boom, smack dab in the middle of 2018, there they are. Richard Allen's looking healthy. I mean, look at him in this image here on the right. Look how skinny he looks. And then look at the image in 2018. He's much healthier, right? He got his power back. So I think if anybody's going to help with this case, it might be his direct family, like his daughter. Like, was he into Asatru or Odinism or witchcraft? She'll be like, yeah, he was. Was he kind of did he have a dirty mind and was he into kind of some sick shit? Yeah, he was. So we don't know. Just because we don't know doesn't mean that the evidence doesn't exist. We don't know anything about this man. And that could lean to his innocence or his guilt. Hey, Sensei, what's up? Good to see you.
We do not train to be merciful here. Mercy is for the weak. Here, on the street, in competition.
Dave G says, you don't admit to being guilty more than 60 times unless you did it. Well, that goes to why Richard Allen did it, not why not. Like, you're preaching to the choir on that one. You know, we did a whole live stream playing devil's advocate on those confessions. But the judge says no, they're you know, he wasn't coerced, he wasn't under duress, and he wasn't suffering from psychosis. So we want to play devil's advocate, not preach to the choir. Of BA. Who's BA? Or was it a friend of BA who had worked at CVS with him? Not sure who that is. Yeah, we're all entitled to our own opinion, Anna. So yeah, we don't have to agree with Steve, and we don't have to agree with each other. We just want to know what the fuck is going on. They don't want to have any real conversations. They just want to attack people and project their insecurities. Route 661. If law enforcement is investigating Richard Allen for past crimes, I don't think we would know it yet, given the way law enforcement keeps things quiet. That's true. So let's focus on what we know. Yeah, we're a big supporter of True Crime Web over here. That is well known. From what we know of the confessions, they are no more than the ravings of a madman. That's not true. That's far from the truth. You have to be honest. The judge says that they are good to go, that he was not under psychosis, he was not under duress, and he was not incompetent at the time of the confessions. Babs, welcome in. One thing that is very strange and that is to this day, nobody has pointed at Alan as the bridge guy in that small community. Somebody should have seen him on his walks. Just my thoughts. That's not entirely true. We had some of his close friends talk about the fact that he was the bridge guy and that they were confused why they were still showing the video. And they were even asking the local news to retract the story, saying that he wasn't cleared. So there's plenty of people who have come forward. But Richard Allen, I'm assuming if he's a guilty man, he's capable of doing this and hiding in plain sight. He's easily capable of manipulating those around him. And that could be the very reason that he came forward, right? Like, look, guys, I came forward. I've been cleared. Well, I wouldn't say cleared, right? More like overlooked. And why hasn't anybody talked about Richard Allen? Think about that. We've known about everybody else that's been there. We have a list of people. We have online sleuths who have broken it down to a science. There's even a list that you guys don't even know about that the sleuthing community is fully aware of. If you want to know some of those names, go check out the Inquisitor. He's recently released some of those names. For one, the dog walker. Now, he was a prime suspect for a lot of people. But he has 100% been cleared and has an alibi and actually did leave, I believe, by like 1 o'clock or something. And it's been proven. We knew about him. So it's almost like that's another reason why it could be Richard Allen. You know, we knew about DP. We knew about the arguing couple. We knew about the Subaru crew and Cheyenne and all of them. Still not quite sure who the older gentleman is. You know, we've been told it's Ben McCain. There's no proof of that. No mention of him in the PCA. So that's the one piece that I'm not quite sure of. Thank you, Copper. Yeah, if you guys can hit the thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button and go share the video so we can get more people in here. Go link the Richard Allen fan club. Tell them to get in here. Tell them we're playing devil's advocate today. Their favorite.
I rest my case.
Hey, Linda, does he not talk to his daughter since she got married? Maybe new husband called tip line. That's my favorite rumor. You know, that is my favorite rumor right there. I think that's going to get some legs and take off running one day. Right into the dog pile. You know, she didn't try to block her Facebook. She didn't try to hide. Like, I have nothing to hide for. Almost like I'm a victim too. I can't wait to tell my story. Timmy, what's up? Richard Allen is definitely BG, no doubt. Molly says it's possible he's been committing crimes that have gone unsolved. He's had opportunities when working out of town to have free time. Yes, I agree with that. And I've been diligently digging. Many essays go unreported. Yeah, and if they don't have his DNA here, you know, that could be another way that he's been getting away with it. The psychology behind staging of crime scenes is to throw law enforcement off their trail. It's the whole point of it. Betsy said she saw a young guy on the bridge. Well, Betsy didn't come forward until March. So not only did she give her testimony late, she's not supposed to really remember what she saw. She's doing her best to remember. And that's why I have both these photos up for you, Steffa. Look on the left. The guy on the left is the exact same guy on the right, the same day. Let's say you walked into the bar and you see the older looking guy. And then on your way out, you see this younger looking guy. You might even report you saw two separate people. You're not supposed to remember. It's like, you want me to go back an entire month and try to remember what the guy looked like? I'll try. Anna says the witnesses are weak, in my opinion. They would be weak if Richard Allen didn't admit that he saw them as well, right? They said, we saw this man, and now Richard Allen is saying, I was there at that same time and I saw them. And the witnesses are saying, well, the guy that we saw is the guy in Libby's video. So that's where the strength of those witnesses comes from. Not the fact, it's more that Richard Allen is telling on himself on that part, which in my opinion makes it extremely strong. Zoe with the Scrub Report. This just in. 36 likes and 108 watching. Scrubsville. Mar says, nope, weak. Hey, what's up, Redfoot? How you doing? How's your Sunday going? That kind of clothing is so common in rural areas. That could have been my husband dressed like that, but he was never in Indiana. Well, that's the point. Richard Allen was there. Not everybody has that clothing, right? But yeah, I think he's dressed similar than most men. But we're looking for a shorter guy who dresses that way, who was there at the time, which is Richard Allen. Dave G says he's not very intelligent. Most of these killers aren't, but some are, and I don't know. I don't want to assume anything about him. I don't want to assume that he's not into Odinism. I don't want to assume that he's not into witchcraft. And I don't want to assume that he's an idiot either. Because if he is the killer, that means he was capable of hiding his DNA. He was smart enough to come forward, which is the reason they weren't able to search his home, in my opinion. And he's been hiding in plain sight, right? Little old Richard Allen, he's not capable. That shows some level of sophistication, in my opinion. Yeah, I try to practice, Stingy. I try to sharpen that memory, trying to remember license plates. When I go for walks, I'll see like the FedEx driver will come into the neighborhood, and then on their way out, I'll try to remember what they were wearing. If they were wearing a hat, if they were white, Mexican, black, Asian, whatever. Were they wearing glasses? I know, it's kind of weird. You think those witnesses would have gone into well, they didn't see his face. They said he had his face down and his lower face covered. So if Richard Allen would have never admitted to seeing them, it would be worthless. But they admitted, hey, I didn't see him. We just saw some grayish red hair, and we believe that he was a white male, which is Richard Allen. He has grayish brown hair. Copper says, my best answer is it's not him until it is him. Proven in court of law by a jury of his peers. Yep, and that's where we're headed. Unless he pleads guilty, right? That's the best case scenario. And even then, you've had people in the past who have pled guilty to avoid the death penalty and things like that. So the justice system is flawed, for sure. But if he does confess and he just starts talking and starts explaining what happened, like what were you doing with the bodies? What happened down there? What's going on with the sticks? If he can explain everything to a T, that's different. Welcome in, Brian Emery. He has the physical similarities, but it is his gait that really solidified him as the BG to me. I think I have a video of that, of his gait. And it is identical, by the way. I'm so disorganized right now, so hopefully I can find it. Oh, here it is. Put that on loop, and I'll share my screen and see what you guys have to say about that. So this is turning into why is Richard Allen? Which seems to be a little bit easier to do. It's not that easy to explain why he's not. Okay. Hide that comment. Let's take a look-see. I mean, even the little flip of the foot to the left, bink, identical. See how he bends his left foot outward? It's exactly what Richard Allen does. Hand in the pocket. Body type identical. And the gait is identical. So good point. Copper Horse hooking it up. Thank you, Copper. So make sure you guys tell Copper thank you for that membership. We'll be doing a members and mods. So even if the mods aren't present or they're not members, you won't be disqualified, but we're going to enter in all the mods. And all of you new members will be entered into the giveaway as well. Cindy, I can't find any reason to play devil's advocate. What do you think about the tip line thing? Here, let's go over some of the content I grabbed here. And then I want to talk about the Kelsey Smith case. I think the Kelsey Smith case is a lot like the Delphi case. There's a lot of similarities. Kind of tells a tale of an opportunistic killer, somebody who may have been remorseful to a point at the end, but also couldn't control their urges, couldn't control themselves. And it wasn't really a well planned out case, but it was planned out, but not pre-planned. Premeditated, but not pre-planned. Kind of like he saw his intended target and then started coming up with a plan. Like, oh, well, I'll wait outside for her. When she comes out, I'll kidnap her. And then really that's it, Didn't really think it out. But let's go to controlling the narrative. So why would Richard Allen call the tip line? Well, let's look at this nut job here.
Told the reporter he was surprised a dead body was found in the creek across from his home.
I'm like, what the hell's going on? I had no clue.
But police claim Matthew Haverly knew exactly what was going on. Authorities say the body was his mother's, 60-year-old Patricia Haverly, and now he is charged with murder and abusing a corpse. In the interview, he came up with every hypothesis in the book.
I think there was kind of a hit and something happened. Something went bad, and this is like a rural area, so they just wanted to plant the body somewhere else. It would be like a place where people from the city would want to put a body because most likely they wouldn't be found.
He even addressed how his mother would feel.
I'm guessing like my mother, she would be concerned, and probably a lot of the other neighbors would be concerned.
Neighbors are shocked.
It's heartbreaking because he comes across concerned.
That's kind of weird.
Kind of weird.
You got people like that running around.
An autopsy shows his
kinda
mother
weird.
died from head trauma. Haverly is being held without bail and has not yet entered a plea.
Okay, so there's a good example. Like, why the hell would he even come forward? Why would he put himself there? Then you guys remember this guy, right?
The day after Lauren Giddings was reported missing in June of 2011. Reporter Michelle Casada found him standing outside the apartment building where he and Giddings had lived, and that we now know was the scene of the crime. He talks about joining Giddings' friends to look for his
Hey,
law school
CJ.
classmate and how they entered her apartment
Daisy.
to see if there was anything wrong. It was also the first time McDaniel found out that a portion of Lauren Giddings'
a good one,
body
Daisy.
had been recovered by police from the dumpster where he had put it. Knowing now that McDaniel had murdered and dismembered Giddings, the interview provides a glimpse inside the mind of a killer as he builds his story and his alibi. Take a look.
Person that was living there?
Yeah, Lauren was my neighbor. We're just trying to find out where she is at this point. I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I mean, the last time anyone heard from her was an email that she sent out, and no one's heard from her since.
Did you see her hang out with anyone at the time, anything like that?
I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I haven't seen anything. I mean, I've always heard noise outside, but it's just people walking by pretty much.
And she just recently graduated from Mercer?
Yeah, she and I we were both JD students. We graduated back in May.
What kind of person was she? I mean, what did you see her?
I mean, she's as nice as can be. I mean, very personable, very much a people person.
Do you know any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
No,
Just him.
we don't know where she is. I mean, the only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her. Because
What's up, Lola?
we went over. One of her friends had a key. We went inside and tried to see if there was anything amiss, but I mean, she had a door jamb that was sitting right by it, so there was no sign that anyone broke in. I mean, the door was locked when everyone got here. I mean, we just don't know where she is.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of. I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you heard? Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's how we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there.
He's trying to fake
Okay,
it.
sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
I think I need to sit down. I'm shocked. I'm shocked by this news. Body, you say? Either that or he's like, oh shit, I'm going to prison.
Earlier tonight, me and you talked, all right. You don't have any weapons on you, do you? No. That's just you are. What's wrong? You know Detective Patterson, right?
Yes.
Do you remember? Put your hands up here. You remember us talking earlier tonight, right?
Yes.
You remember me earlier in the day?
Yes.
When we came down here and talked a little bit and then we left?
Yes.
Okay. I need to know about this girl right here. You know her?
Yes.
Who is that?
Lauren Giddings.
Does she live next door to you?
Yes.
When's the last time you seen her?
2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Was you friends with Lauren?
Yes.
Look at me when you talk to me, son. Okay? Was you friends with her?
Yes.
Close friends?
We were
What's
good.
up,
I mean,
Roy?
y'all were friends, right? Both of
Yes.
y'all are law students. You're studying to be an attorney, right?
Yes.
What kind of law do you want to go into? Criminal law?
Yes.
Civil? Is that what you want to do for a living?
Yes.
Okay. Are you almost finished?
Yes.
Okay. So you don't have too much more to do, right?
No.
All right. Are you going to stay here in Macon?
Yeah, look at this creep.
No.
So why would these people come forward? Because they think that they're smarter than the cops. And the same bullshit that causes them to commit these murders is the same compulsion that's causing them to interject themselves, to attempt to control the narrative, or even to glean information from investigators. And Daisy, we're going to go to that. We're going to look at the cars. That was a good point. They mentioned the Comet as well. I think Betsy Blair mentioned an old vehicle. So yeah, that's a good point. We'll get to that. Let's look at Kemper and his uncontrollable urge to inject himself into the investigation. So this is titled Kemper's Friendship with Police. It was put out July 9th, 2019 from the Edmund Kemper Stories. Here, maybe I'll put this up on the screen for you guys to read along if you want to. It's pretty interesting. Drawing from David Javent for his upcoming graphic novel about Ed Kemper. Yeah, I'm kind of sitting at a bar. So this isn't very long-winded, so it should be quick. In quotations, my relations with the police were much exaggerated at the time of my crimes. I knew 2 or 3 agents. The bar I went to wasn't in front of the police station. It was more than 1,600 feet away, in front of the courthouse. The jury room, Joe Mandela's jury room. Come in and give us your verdict. That's the slogan under the sign. This establishment is rather quiet, and a number of police officers frequent it. At the time I was committing my crimes, I used the friendship bonds that I'd woven with these policemen to learn more about the progress of the investigation. Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. I had read it when I was younger, Kemper smiles. With this criminal who feels the pressure building up inside, are they following me? And he ends up cracking and confessing. This is a novel. I want to avoid all of that. I had no problem getting information out of these officers. Why? Because of the very structure of the police hierarchy. Whose elite is represented by the criminal brigade. They see themselves as the cream of the crop, and they like to brag about their exploits in front of other cops. So there is a certain jealousy and friction between the different services. As for me, I was doing a little dragging around these simple cops. I didn't care about being their friend. I had already been in prison. I didn't like the police, but they were talking to each other about what they'd heard about the case. I was on the periphery. They snubbed me, as they were snubbed by the super cops of the criminal. But I wasn't bothered by their presence. I didn't act weirdly in front of them, and that's something they must have felt. Just like Richard Allen, right? Not acting any different with his wife. When you're a psychopath, which Richard Allen most likely is if he's a guilty man, it's not going to bother him. He's just going to go back to playing the character that he's been playing since a young child. Ever since he first, he probably was torturing animals, and his friends were like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, what, you don't think this is cool? They're like, no, man, you're sick. It was at that very moment he realized, I gotta keep this private. Usually any citizen who speaks to police officer in uniform is clumsy, as if he's guilty or something, even if he's clean, right? Elvis Fields. And I think cops are sensitive to that kind of thing. As soon as they put on a uniform, they know right away that they're no longer like the others. Relationships are skewed. It's something that must hurt them somehow. But if I don't act that way, if I don't treat them like an insect under the microscope, then I've slipped a foot in the crack of the door. Little by little, you learn to pay for beers and get to know each other. How's it going, Big Ed? Great. And you, Andy, etc. And a year later, I phone them to tell them I'm the co-ed killer. I want to surrender. And those of you who know the story about that, they were baffled. It was almost like he wanted to throw it in their face. So there's a good answer right there why he called the tip line. So let's skip Kelsey Smith's story for now, and let's go and address the different vehicles that were seen at the crime scene. Yeah, I think so too, Anna. And most psychopaths will. Like, if they wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have killed them. Or I was under a lot of stress and I needed to get power or control back in my life. Let's go. Where did I put that? Let's see. Amended charges. Maybe it's in the PCA. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, so we'll open here. Let me grab a few different things. Let me also pull up parts of the Frank's memo where they mentioned the comment. "1965 Mercury Comet." Oh, shit. Oh, there it is. Okay. So you have the witnesses kind of describing different types of vehicles. You know, something like a smart car, a PT Cruiser, and then what Richard Allen actually owned, which was seen on the Hoosier Harvestor video. I mean, they all seem pretty similar. But Betsy Blair, who described seeing a younger man on the bridge at the time the girls, you know, she's seen the girls right after. So she saw this guy on the bridge, younger guy. And I believe she was the one that saw this type of vehicle parked near the CPS building. So she's seeing a younger guy and a different vehicle completely. And right after she sees the guy on the bridge, she sees the girls. So yeah, it's a huge discrepancy. But also we have to consider the source. This was part of the defense memo, and they've lied about everything. They've lied about Brad Holder's photo matching the crime scene. That's not true. They came out and said that Patrick Westfall was rubbing some type of rune onto a tree when really he was wedging an item into the bark. So, I mean, everything that we've been able to verify has been a fallacy. So that's really the only answer I have for that. Is considering the source. But if it is true, very strange. Here, let's read this here. The car that Betsy Blair observed as she passed the old CPS building at 2:15 p.m. looked nothing like a black Ford Focus. According to Liggett's own report, Betsy Blair observed one car parked at the CPS lot at 2:15, and that car resembled a 1965 Ford Comet that her father once owned. The shape had sharper angles again. To whom did Betsy Blair provide this description of a 1964 Ford Comet looking angular in appearance vehicle? None other than Liggett himself. Liggett was fully aware that the car that Betsy Blair described as being backed into the spot of the old CPS building looked nothing like Richard Allen's black Ford Focus. Okay, well, her story doesn't match with three others who actually do kind of match, right? They said it looked like a smart car, PT Cruiser, or a smaller type SUV. which is what Richard Allen's Ford Focus looks like. So she would be the odd man out here. But it is still interesting if this is true. But once again, you have to consider the source. And unfortunately, this leaked Frank's memo is just filled with bullshit, unfortunately. So you can't really take any of it seriously. It's all basically lies. Until they're not, right? What's up, Regis? Yeah, I don't think he had to meet. I don't think he lured them. I think he was just there and upset. So I think now might be a good time to get into the Kelsey Smith case. Now, this happened June 2nd, 2007. Let me put up a photo of Kelsey. This would be the case against Edwin R. Hall, who was 33 at the time, eventually pleading guilty to abducting Kelsey, who was 18 at the time, from a Target parking lot in Overland Park. So I'm sorry, it took place on June 6th. I'm sorry, not June 2nd. Here's a photo of him. Okay, I'll read this article. It's a little bit long-winded, but there's a lot of interesting things here. Remember, this case is about... Here, maybe we'll show the CCTV footage so you get more of an idea of what's going on. Spur of the moment. He never seen her before. He was shopping at Target, and she was shopping at Target, and he told the court he thought she had great legs. That sparked everything. So while she was checking out, he ran outside, got his vehicle, and got everything in position. So he planned it, but he didn't lure her. He wasn't targeting her. He didn't, it was just spur of the moment planning. I think that's what was going on with Richard Allen. Like, he planned it out after he kind of saw what was going on. He assessed the situation and then came up with a plan quickly. And he couldn't control himself, just like this guy. I mean, he's at Target, for goodness sake. Imagine going shopping and you come out, next thing you know, you're attacked by some sick, sadistic killer. I think I have a short clip of him coming out too. See, and he's just kind of out of it. So he sees her and he's coming out and he's looking around. Like, okay, I'm going to do this. He's not a big guy. He's a little skinny guy. Little old skinny me. Look at him. He doesn't look threatening at all. So after he saw her, he didn't purchase anything. He didn't do anything. He just went out and said, I'm going to do this. Out of control. Now, when you see the similarities with the crime scene and how it all happened, you guys are going to trip out. Let me zip on down. I want to see if I missed anybody. Hey, Periwinkle, welcome in. Feral Cat, what's up? Yeah, that's a good question, Hathers. Who in all this owns an old ass Mercury Comet? And why didn't they use why didn't they appreciate her descriptions before? They didn't even use them until 2019, right? She's the one who created the young sketch. So maybe they still didn't care. Remember, they had people like Hannah Shakespeare over there kind of poking them. Like, when are you going to give us more information? Like, what the hell are you guys doing? So they might have been pressured. Like, well, we do have this old sketch and we do have this information about a vehicle. So what is it about Betsy Blair's statements that they don't quite like? All right. Edwin Hall was near the jewelry counter in Target when he spotted Kelsey Smith. She was there buying a present for her boyfriend. He was there looking for a victim. Nice legs, Hall thought when he noticed the girl who had graduated from high school 10 days before. When he turned and saw her face, he thought she looked like a 12-year-old. It was early in the evening of June 2nd, 2007. He narrowed in. On Wednesday, he packed Johnson County courtroom, heard vivid details of what happened to the 18-year-old Overland Park girl, as Hall unexpectedly pleaded guilty to kidnapping her, raping and sodomizing her, and then strangling her with her own belt. As Hall stood and said guilty to each of the charges: capital murder, aggravated kidnapping, rape, and aggravated sodomy, Missy Smith clutched pictures of her slain daughter. When Hall said guilty the first time, she collapsed on the shoulder of her husband, Greg. After the fourth time, she hugged and cried. District Judge Peter Ruddick plans to sentence Hall on September 16th. The 27-year-old Olathe man will spend his life in prison with no chance of parole. After the pleas, District Attorney Phil Klein laid out the evidence he would have presented at trial. Smith's DNA was found on the stain inside the zipper flap of Hall's shorts. The chance that the DNA was anyone but Smith's was 1 in over 280 billion. So I think they're going to put the DNA that they have in a category like this. Like, we can't tell you 100% it's Richard Allen's, but the likelihood of it not being his is astronomical. Klein obtained the plea by taking the death penalty off the table, which I think we'll be dealing with Richard Allen. Hall also has waived all of his appeal rights, Klein said, as part of the deal, which I think will happen with Richard Allen too, probably here in the next few days. As part of the deal, prosecutors will dismiss charges in an unrelated case they filed against Hall in July of 2007. In that case, Hall is charged with 2 counts of aggravated indecent liberties for an alleged involvement in a consensual sexual relationship in 2004 with a girl who was 14 at the time. Today is a victory for justice, but it's not a cause for celebration. Klein said afterward at a news conference, "My hope is that Mr. Hall's name will be forgotten and the name of Kelsey Smith, who she was and what she did, will live on." Smith's family agreed. Her parents and 3 sisters, she also has a younger brother, stood with 24 of Kelsey's friends after the hearing. It was just 13 months ago that the family searched for Kelsey for nearly 4 days before authorities found her body near Longview Lake. "Justice isn't always fair," Greg Smith said. "If it were fair, we'd have Kelsey back." And we say that on this channel constantly. There's no such thing as justice for people like Abby and Libby who have been murdered for no reason whatsoever. You know, there's no bringing them back. The hearing was supposed to be a routine one in which attorneys would argue whether the mid-September trial should be delayed. But after the judge ruled Tuesday the prosecutors could seek the death penalty, ongoing discussions over a plea became more serious. And I think that's what happened during the recent hearing on the 23rd. I think they had advised that the death penalty was on the table. Hall's wife, Aletha, was in the courtroom Wednesday, and she has been for most of his hearings. When Hall walked into the room, he looked at her and smiled slightly. The two have a young son whom neighbors said Hall was always attentive to before his arrest. Aletha Hall declined to comment after the hearing. Defense attorney Paul Cram, who Hall called over before he was arrested, said Hall was very remorseful. He declined to elaborate. Cole counsel Carl Cornwell said that he and Cram represented Hall for free. When Ruddock asked Hall if he felt he had effective counsel, he answered yes. Hall's adopted mother, Carol Hall, who has seen Hall twice since his arrest, said the plea was a shock to us. A friend called her at her Emporia, Kansas home Wednesday afternoon and told her the hearing was on television. Right? It was a shock. Right? Not my boy. Not my Ricky. I'm almost sick to my stomach, she said in a telephone interview. I feel for those people, and I feel for his son, for Hall's son, right? Richard Allen's daughter. I'm just sick. He said he didn't do it. Obviously, he did. I pray for him. Klein outlined for the court what happened that day Smith was kidnapped and killed. Smith's friends and family and police officers from Overland Park and other agencies filled the seats and stood in the aisle and against the wall. As Klein spoke, Smith's family repeatedly cried. So did her friends, many of whom leaned on one another or clasped hands as new details came out. Sorry. Hall dined alone at a Mexican restaurant near Oak Park Mall late that Saturday afternoon and left without paying. Just after 5 p.m., he went to the Dillards at the mall. He later told authorities he was shopping for a gift for his wife. However, Mr. Hall was without monies, and the video does not show any shopping activity. He was probably going to shoplift. Klein told the court surveillance video from Dillard shows Hall for the last time at 5:50 p.m. A little more than an hour later, Smith pulled into the Target parking lot across the street from the mall. Seconds later, Hall's truck pulled into the same lot. At 6:55 p.m., Smith entered the store. Not long after, Hall followed. 1 minute later, Smith called her mother, wanting to know where in the store the picture frames were. While she was shopping, Hall went near the jewelry counter and noticed her, Klein said. Then he followed her. Hall said saw Smith in a checkout line and left the store. He waited outside. Surveillance video showed Smith walking to her car with packages and putting them in the passenger side. Then she walked behind her car to the driver's side. After Smith opened the driver's door, Hall ran up behind her and forced her into the car. The car left the lot and turned west. Klein told the court that Hall threatened Smith by holding an air gun to the back of her head. From Target, Hall took Smith to a wooded area near Longview Lake in southern Jackson County. Authorities found that location by tracking pings on Smith's cell phone. He raped and sodomized Smith while she was alive, Klein said, citing previous testimony from Mary Dudley, the Jackson County medical examiner who performed the autopsy. Hall strangled her with the belt she wore as part of her uniform at a movie theater. Defense wounds showed Smith fought for her life. The death was particularly cruel and heinous in that the death by strangulation requires several minutes during which the victim is fearful and impending death, Klein said. The afternoon after Smith disappeared, a Missouri couple walking near Longview Lake were startled when a man matching Hall's description emerged from the woods near the walking path, Klein said. The site is about 45 yards west of where Smith's body was found 3 days later. Sounds familiar, right? The man was carrying a blue duffel bag, the couple said, and walked to a black pickup that had several wooden sticks stripped of branches and leaves in the back. Authorities found Smith's body in a small hollow, right? Just like Abby and Libby. She was nude with most of her clothes 100 feet north of her body, just like Libby's clothing. They were north. Her belt was around her neck. Smith's pink shirt was near the body and stained with bleach, as if someone had tried to destroy evidence. So that could be something that comes up. Across her body is in a woven style were sticks stripped of leaves and branches. Prosecutors had DNA evidence beyond the stain on Hall's shorts. Hall's DNA was found on the steering wheel of Smith's car. There was a 1 in 5.3 million chance that it matched someone besides Hall. See, I think that's what we're going to be dealing with here. Something similar with the DNA, if there is any DNA matching to Richard Allen. A swab of the driver's side seatbelt guide showed a 1 in 923.4 million chance that the DNA did not belong to Hall. Investigators found a blood stain on Hall's left shoe. DNA test showed that Smith could not be excluded as a match, right? Richard Allen may have DNA of the killer, which he can't be excluded, but they can't prove 100%. So I think that's what we're going to be dealing with the DNA. Carol Hall and her husband Don of Emporia adopted Edwin Hall when he was 7, just like Richard Allen, right? He was adopted by his stepfather. A couple read a newspaper article about children up for adoption and want to give him a better life. 8 years later, after Hall was convicted in juvenile court of threatening his adopted sister with a knife. And we don't know if Richard Allen has a juvenile record. We don't know that. For all we know, he stabbed somebody. He went back into state custody. He never returned to his adoptive home. After leaving juvenile custody when he was 18, Hall moved around, living in different parts of Kansas. Within a year, he married Aletha. The two eventually moved to Kansas City area. After Hall's arrest, Carol Hall told the Emporia Gazette, "You think you can give them love and all those things they didn't get, like support. It works with some, but with him, it didn't." Many young people who walked neighborhoods last June looking for Smith were in the courtroom wearing light blue Kelsey's Army t-shirts. The backs of the shirts read, "We're still here." All right. So how strange is that? So he covered her with sticks as well, and they were interwoven. To me, that's very similar to the crime scene here with Delphi. So there's Kelsey Smith. Beautiful young lady. Forced out of this world by a guy who was just on one that day. You know, Richard Allen, the witnesses say if it's him, right? He appeared to be having a bad day. He kind of growled at them. They even waved at him. Very similar to Edwin Hall. So who knows what Richard Allen was doing? We know he has a lot of speeding tickets in his past. So hopefully he's not fleeing crime scenes. You know, and that's why he got those tickets. All right, we're going to open up the rest for discussion, and then we'll get out of here in about 15 minutes. But I wanted to read this. This is from the Bureau of Justice Statistics here. 70% of violent felons had a prior arrest record, and 57 had at least one prior arrest for a felony, which is not that high, right? 57%. 67% of murderers and 73% of those convicted of robbery and assault had an arrest record. Richard Allen does not. Beth, I just got your email. Let me see what I can do here real quick. Give me a second. I have to go to my settings. Just bear with me a moment, guys. I'm not seeing her on the list, Beth. So I don't know if she's timed out or what, but there's nothing I can do about it. Dave says he had an elaborate fantasy in his head that day and decided to act. Yeah, he did. He walked the entirety of the trail, and he didn't have some huge plan, right? So it's just funny because if this guy wasn't caught and he didn't admit to it, and he didn't steal the girl's car and leave all this DNA everywhere, it'd be harder to identify him. And then you would have a defense team that would try to make up some theory about the sticks that were laid on top of her, when really it was just him trying to throw off the investigation. But to me, that's a very similar situation to what happened, I think, on that trail that day. CJ says that put fear into me. It's a couple hours for me. Her dad was a cop and had talked to his daughter many times about situations like this. Lala, I'm so glad I'm plain as fuck because apparently being pretty is hazardous to your health with these sickos. Not necessarily. It just depends on what their type is. These guys have types. And I have a feeling that maybe Libby was a type if she was the target. Okay. I'm going to skip over a lot of this because I want to get caught up. Welcome in, Amy. Amy says, I'm glad to be fugly. It keeps the crazies away. Jeez. Dang, Kitty, thank you. Kitty Wamblista hitting the Cash App again. All of you who have been hitting the Cash App here recently, Hot Sauce, all of you. You guys make it all possible. So I apologize for skipping a lot of the chat. We're going to zoom down to the bottom, though. So if you want to repeat your question, go ahead and do it now. I don't like putting the timer on the chat because I know you guys are doing your own thing. And I don't want to mess with that while I'm reading these long-winded articles and things like that. If Richard Allen is guilty, I'd guess he rationalized the event until it was not part of his regular thinking. He could have been extremely mad, too. He could have been very angry. Like, somebody's going to suffer today. And it might even be me. He may have even been thinking about taking his own life. Could have been under the influence. He could be dressed the way he was dressed because he was up all night. Who knows what he did and where he came from. He could have committed a crime. He could have been drinking and driving. He could have maybe did a hit and run, crashed into a vehicle and left. Just something crazy that, maybe he was out of control. We always look at how he was dressed as a reason to think he had lured the girls there and pre-planned that. He could have just been in that clothes from the night before. Badass, what's up? I saw a case out of Ohio where a man stabbed to death his fiance. It took 12 years until they charged him after a hunter found her bones. Yeah, without a body, it's hard to convict. It's hard to convince a jury, unless you have a whole lot of blood or something, where a medical examiner can convince the jury, yeah, with this amount of blood, it's safe to say that the victim has passed. Jeez. I wonder if the Delphi offender, whoever that is, Stalk the trails, waiting for the perfect time to enact his sickest fantasies. Well, we know Richard Allen frequented. Sorry, my nose is a little bit stuffy. Those trails. Law enforcement asked why Abby and Libby, why Delphi. Well, why the bridge? Why the Monon High Bridge, and why the creek underneath? Well, that's a place that Richard Allen was extremely familiar with. We know he was there that day. And as much as people want to argue about that bullet, that is extremely strong evidence against him. And we now know that even the defense's experts agree with that. And if they're going to let these confessions in, and during the status hearing, I think it was on the 23rd, I have a hinkling that they discussed the death penalty. And they could have already asked the judge, hey, we're going to request it. Of course, she's going to look at it. She's going to have to make all these other rulings and get all this pretrial stuff out of the way. And then I think that'll be their next decision. We probably won't hear about it. It'll be instant. Death penalty on the table, and then the plea agreement will come right after. And hopefully they make an arrangement to where he doesn't, where he can never be retried. And he gives the details and the specifics and the reason why. That look on Richard Allen's face tells me that that's what he's going to do. He's got his glasses. He's got his little folder. He's done with it. He's not going to carry the burden anymore. Stop that right now. You stop it right now. Maybe he was disguised, not to hide from the girls, but to hide his identity from the person filming the snuff film. So KK got paid twice from Allen for setting up the meeting as Anthony Schatz and from selling. Yeah, and just because we don't have evidence that Anthony Schatz is connected or Keegan Kline, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Just like we don't know if Richard Allen is part of some religious cult or is an Odinist or wanted to join a gang and he's going to snitch on these third-party suspects. We don't know. For all we know, it was a ritual, and it was some kind of witchcraft or something, some kind of bastardized religion with Satanism, witchcraft, and runes and all of this. And he really didn't know what he was doing. But he can explain it. Either way, he'll be the one to tell us. If, right, Anna? If he's the killer? Hather says, I noticed that about true crime. A lot of the crimes take place near woods, trails, and bodies of water. Well, according to some serial killers, they use the water to hide evidence. When will we know if the Odin stuff is allowed? I think they're deciding on that right now. Without that, that's when we'll get that plea, guys. And we talked about what it means to have a valid alternate suspect. There's a guideline for that. There's guidelines for admitting something like that. You have to be able to connect them to the crime some way. And saying, oh, we found runes at the crime scene, which is up for debate. And these folks over here whose son is dating one of the victims, they're also into runes. And he also accused one of his ex-friends of participating in the murders. Which I believe that Brad Holder did. I think he said that to his ex-wife, Amber. I think he said those words to her. Why? Who knows why people do what they do? He's a weird guy. We're talking about the same guy that came online and was talking about maybe Bigfoot did it. Like, who says that shit? Strange people. There's strange people in this world. But being strange doesn't put you there on 2/13/2017 at 2:15 on that bridge. Does it make you suspicious? Hell yeah. There's a whole list of things that make Brad Holder suspicious. That's why Richard Allen's defense team is pointing at him in hopes that it creates probable cause. But in order to do that, you have to sufficiently connect them to the actual crime itself. Stephanie, I mean, why would you doubt it? It doesn't have to be like real witchcraft, you know. It could be like some kind of weird Satanism. I mean, we don't know anything about this guy. And that could be by design. So I think it's reckless to assume that we know anything about Richard Allen or his family dynamic. Israel Keys took pride in the fact he was a good father. All he ever cared about was his daughter. But yet he's one of the most sadistic killers of all time. Sickest of the sick. Mar says, if it's such crap, the odinist stuff, who cares if it's let in? They should have no problem disproving it. Well, because you can't waste the court's time. That's part of the guidelines. You know, you can't just come in here and distract the jury. You have to address the evidence that's being presented against your client. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm going to ignore that and I'm going to show you another case over here. Like, there's guidelines. You can't just waste the court's time. Let me see if I have that information handy. All right, let's pull that up. Factors. The assessment of admissibility balances probative value against prejudicial effect. The court should consider factors including the danger the evidence will arouse the jury's emotions of prejudice, hostility, or sympathy. The danger the evidence and any evidence responding to it will unduly distract the jury from the main issue in the case, right? The likelihood the evidence will consume an undue amount of time. The danger of unfair surprise to the opposing party who could not reasonably anticipate the issue and prepare a response to it. The danger that the evidence will be presented in such a way that it usurps the function of the jury. And I think you can cross a lot of those off the list when it comes to the Odinism stuff. And also here, evidence directed to prove that the crime was committed by a third person rather than the accused must, of course, meet the test of relevancy and must have sufficient probative value to justify its reception. Consequently, the courts have shown a disinclination to admit such evidence unless the third person is sufficiently connected by circumstances with the crime charged to give the preferred evidence some probative value. So you can't just allow evidence in and waste all that time and money and energy and distract the jury from what they're trying to present against Richard Allen. His defense team, sadly enough, has not really addressed any of the real evidence. They did their best. They kind of used the third-party suspects as the same reason to throw out the search warrant, like they called it exculpatory. That just shows that they have nothing. And those are all the reasons that I believe that we'll see a change in plea. So they're waiting for that. They're waiting for that to be thrown out. And once it's thrown out, because they're not going to waste the court's time, and they're not going to distract the jury from the case that they have against Richard Allen. The evidence needs to be addressed. Well, why was Richard Allen's bullet there? Oh, well, it was a ritual killing, and he's not into that kind of stuff. What? It's just distracting. Maybe. James says, I can see Goal not letting it in because it's defamation of others not being officially charged. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's all less than circumstantial in most cases. Is it suspicious? Well, yeah, if those are runes left at the crime scene, if the positioning of the victims are somehow if an expert can prove that it was done on purpose for whatever reason, you still have to figure out who's connected to that. You know, if it is runes, if it's what they claim it to be, you still have to connect somebody to it. And apparently Brad Holder has an alibi, and there's a lot of people in Indiana who are into Odinism, apparently. So your suspects need to be connected or relevant. Otherwise, I think it would be allowed in. If they could connect any one of those third-party suspects to the trails that day, it would be allowed. For sure. What's up, Amy? How do you know if you got a membership? You'll see a highlighted like a logo next to your name. Like, see Mar R? See how she has that little item there? And I can customize those. It just takes some time. But that's how you know. Yeah, and if you have proof that they were there that day, it's really not slander. You know, you're saying I can prove that these people were here, kind of like they can prove Richard Allen was there, and then they just add in all the other stuff. Thank you, Hathers. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Give a shout out to Hathers for the flex. My guy Jerry, hope you're doing well. Hope the fam is good. Thanks for sponsoring today's live stream. Also, Copper Horse with her generosity. Hopefully you guys said thank you to Copper. This is the second time that she's done something like that. So we appreciate all of your support. And Hathers as well. And Kitty Wambalista for the generous donation to the Cash App. You guys all, I appreciate you. Thank you again. We have a live stream scheduled later today. I might be rescheduling that for 6 o'clock my time. Right now I have it 2 o'clock my time. But I do have a lot of content for you guys. Let me pull up the thumbnail. Should be interesting. The main focus will be on the Scream killings. These two knuckleheads on the right. But mainly it's going to focus on interviews with serial killers and those that kind of explain why they did what their reasoning behind the murders. So this should be interesting. Mustang, thank you. Yeah, I agree, Mar. He seems, who knows, you know? You never know. It is until it isn't. You know, we'll follow the evidence. But I appreciate all you guys. I think I'm going to go through later and find out if there's a couple people that have been blocked and I'll try to figure out if we can get you guys back in the chat. But if you have any issues like that, the best way to do it is to email me directly, and we can have a private chat about what's going on with that, okay? Shout out to my mods, all my members, my new subscribers, and all of you who participated in the chat. And if you are part of the replay crew, you know what to do. Drop a comment, and I'll get back to you. Peace out, guys.